Once more, welcome to our YouTube channel, MnArt. We are offering you educational content to help our high school level of education students to continue learning while they are having their safe stay at home. Remember to subscribe so that you can get notifications of our content as they come up. You're welcome to Christian Religious Education Form 2.
This is CR Form 2 and your teacher is Sarah Nyakundi, and you are welcome. Today we are going on with our former topic of the Old Testament prophecies. The prophecies according to Prophet Isaiah, and we saw that among the things that he spoke about was that the Messiah was going to be born in the house of David. It was a baby boy, and he was going to be born by a young woman. And also we saw that he talked of the suffering servant, and we talked about the ways that Jesus was going to suffer. Those are the characteristics of a suffering servant. He could be mocked, he could be crucified, he could be crucified with criminals, he could be buried in somebody's tomb, that is suffering. He could bear the suffering and the pain of mankind. He could also be afflicted. He could be treated like a criminal, though he was innocent. And he could be oppressed. He could be rejected by his own people. So those are some of the characteristics of a suffering servant. We're just reminding ourselves on the prophecies of Prophet Isaiah. And today we are on to the prophecies of Prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah is one of the Old Testament prophets. He was one of the true prophets of God in the land of Israel, and he reigned in the southern kingdom. He reigned in the southern kingdom, and he worked there. And Jeremiah spoke about things which were affecting the people of his time and the time long after. And so he talked about the Messiah, who was not born at that particular time. I have said Jeremiah talked about contemporary issues of his time. He also talked about the future. So that is why he is referred to as a major prophet, covering a long period of time. He also had a large volume of work. He tackled many issues during his time. And on the Messiah, Prophet Jeremiah spoke out that the Messiah could be born in the house of David. He was talking on what had been talked about from the old. Jeremiah said that the Messiah or the king could be chosen, and he could be righteous, and he could be from the house of David. Then Jeremiah again said that he could be prosperous. He could prosper in his work, in his office work as a Messiah or as a king. The king could be prosperous. He could be he could rule the world with righteousness and with a lot of wisdom. And he talked about this king executing justice, giving the right judgment to the right issues. I mean, there could be no biasness. He could be righteous. He could rule with wisdom. He could be prosperous. And we have also seen that he could rule with justice. Jeremiah said that during the tenure of this king, righteous king, both Judah and Israel, the southern and the northern kingdom, could live in harmony and in great peace. That is what he said. This is against what was happening at that time. That the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom were not friends. They were not in good records. the northern kingdom had broken away from the southern kingdom long time ago when Solomon was king of Israel. And so Jeremiah saying out that the king who could be born could rule with justice, he could be wise, he could be prosperous, he could be righteous, and he could bring peace to dwell between these two houses. That was something that the people could not see that it could be possible. And then he could be called the righteous one of the Lord, and the Lord our salvation. He could be referred to as the righteous one of the Lord, and who is the Lord himself of salvation. Those are the prophecies of prophet Jeremiah. Then we move down to the prophecies of David, the words that David as the king spoke from his own mouth through the songs that he was making. And this is in the book of Psalms. So the prophecies of the psalmist, who was David the king. David pointed out that this king could be betrayed by one of his closest friends. Yes, that is what David said. Could be betrayed by a close friend. And you can see Jesus being betrayed by Judas, one of his own, in the inner circle, one of the disciples. He also said that the leader, the king, could rule with a lot of authority. He said he could rule with a lot of authority. And finally, he said that the Messiah could be referred to as the Lord. He could be referred to as the Lord. He could rule with authority. He could be betrayed by one of his closest friends, and that he could rule amidst his enemies. He could become a king among his enemies. Yes. Then finally, we look at Micah's prophecies. Micah 5 chapter 2 speaks about the Messiah to be born in Bethlehem, one of the smallest towns of Israel. He could be born in Bethlehem. That is according to Micah. And we will come to find out that Jesus will be born in Bethlehem. Yes, it came to pass. Then we also talk about Micah pointed out that this king could rule with a lot of authority, and that he could establish peace in the land of Judah. You see, they are in agreement. These leaders, these prophecies are all in agreement. We talk about Isaiah's prophecies. We talk about Jeremiah's prophecies, the psalmist and Micah. They agree to some extent that the leader could become very powerful and he could rule with authority. And but Isaiah deviated and brought in the idea of the suffering servant. Then, and these prophecies, these predictions, built some picture in the hearts of the Jewish on how the Messiah could be. So that is what we saw, the expectations of the Jewish people on the Messiah. They had great expectations. He was to be a great and powerful king. He could rule with a lot of wisdom and he could rule with a lot of authority. They expected the king to be born from the house of David. This is just built on what they had been taught in the scrolls of the various prophecies. Then, and I think that is what we could talk about, the prophecies of the Old Testament on the coming of the Messiah. We might have some few questions to ask ourselves, just as an assignment. We have a question like, describe the prophecies of Prophet Jeremiah on the coming of the Messiah. Describe Jeremiah's prophecies on the Messiah. You could also need to maybe describe the prophecies of Nathan on the Messiah? Those are good questions. If you can rewind and you see, you can be able to name a few prophecies. And then we can also ask ourselves another question as an assignment. What does the term Messiah mean? Define the term Messiah, the meaning of the term Messiah. Then we talk about highlight on the Jewish expectations on the Messiah. And did Jesus really fulfill the expectations of the Messiah? And if he did not, in what ways did he fail? And if he did, in what ways did he fulfill the prophecies? And we have come to the end of our lesson. And thank you very much for having time with us.
Remember to subscribe so that you can get the notification of the lesson as it comes up. We are grateful that you found time to learn with us.